Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. I am Ryan Linkletter, and no, guys, Brady Penn is not here tonight. Brady's got something that came up tonight. We got another guest tonight. We got RJ Nowicki here, former Division I pitcher on the show, big time Tom Brady lover, just like our other co-host, Brady Penn. But hey, RJ is going to bring some good insight tonight. RJ, what were your thoughts on tonight's game between the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, for starters, appreciate you having me on, Link. Always a
Yes,
pleasure to be a part of the team whenever you guys need a little bit of help. But thought it was a pretty good game overall. I mean, Detroit going into San Francisco with, correct me if I'm wrong, relatively nothing to play for. You know, everything for them happens next week, and full throttle, 40-point game. Jared Goff, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks again. I thought he played pretty well. And their offense is scary. They're a scary team. I think they're dangerous. Despite all the injury setbacks, nothing to really, like I said, play for. They're full throttle tonight, and it was just another impressive win for that team in Detroit.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a little crazy getting to that. Let's get to some of the people early on in the chat. We got T2s, Yo. We got Stu in the chat, Sarge, Stern in the chat. Dang it, I wish I could see Brady's face. If you guys weren't here yesterday, Brady did get a clean shave, and you guys can see that next time or on our YouTube on yesterday's episode. Mr. Tweeter, hi, Richard. A lot of Richard love in here. TC,
Love
LeBron
TC.
or Jordan. And then we got Alec popping in. Hi. Then we got Purdy and a Goff. I'm pretty sure that means they want Purdy over Goff. StreamYard on the computer is tweaking right now and not showing us those arrows. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there. The Lions had nothing to play for tonight. Obviously, like they could have benched their starters, but that's Dan Campbell. It might be stupid. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with all the fourth down decisions. I don't agree with his playing style at all. But that's how they do. They stay true to who they are, and they went out there and they were able to just dominate on the offensive side of the ball. They were not stopped by this 49ers defense that was once one of the top defenses in the NFL and just not that defense anymore. They suck against the run game. They're a little bit better against the pass, but this defense has a lot of holes due to the injuries up front at nose tackle, especially. Obviously, losing Charvarius Ward this week didn't help, but it was definitely concerning what I saw from the 49ers as a whole. How do you start the first half like they did on offense, and in the second half, Brock Purdy absolutely just craps down his leg and 2 interceptions right to Kirby Joseph? Like, they fell apart in the second half almost, and I really thought heading into halftime, I'm like, we got a good game. The 49ers defense was barely holding on, and then it just didn't happen in the second half. And the Lions, man, they're just a well-oiled machine right now, Brady. And the defense, I will say that it's concerning for me. I'm not necessarily sold on this Detroit Lions defense stopping the Vikings next week. I really do think the 1 seed's in jeopardy. What do you think heading into that matchup?
Honestly, dude, thinking about it and with everything, especially with that Dan Campbell team, obviously I know they're banged up, but just the mentality that he brings as a head coach, I feel like that's a separator. And I'm not saying, nothing against Kevin O'Connell and that team in Minnesota, but Detroit has been built for this, dude. Like, they are ready to roll. This game is Sunday Night Football. This game is in Detroit. I think it's going to be, just a high-flying game. Both sides, offenses are going to be flying. It's going to be absolutely electric, but yeah, definitely a little bit banged up for sure. And I do think if Detroit was full strength that they would have an advantage over Minnesota. But I think Minnesota does have an advantage, but I don't think it's very big. I think it's a small margin. It's going to be really interesting to see. Like, I'm excited for that game for sure.
It's going to be a great one. Sunday Night Football. We might have to link up and find a way to go watch that game. That one's going to be interesting for sure. Quick questions in the chat before we get back to the game. Richard, who is the best player on Prism softball?
I got to give it to my co-host for sure.
TC in the chat. Question for RJ: is Bill Russell the GOAT in terms of Jordan fan logic?
No comment on that at this time. This is a football chat. TC.
Who do you think is the next 101 next year in fantasy football? I think for sure Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley. It's going to be a toss-up between those two. Personally, I'm leaning Jamar. I think Jamar is going to be the 101 next year just because wide receivers are a little less injury prone than running backs. And I think with both guys absolutely dominating this year, it's going to be close compared to this year. I think everybody was sold on Christian McCaffrey. But either way, there is a little curse tie to this 101 player in fantasy where they don't necessarily pop off the next year or do anything at all. So I'm interested to see. It also has that trend for the offensive player of the year. So you guys drafted next year. Make sure you guys remember that in the back of your head. Those of you guys are in my league in this chat right now, do not remember that. Go ahead, pick the consensus 101, and I will gladly not be picking that guy next year. Let's talk back about that Vikings-Lions matchup. I'm interested to see Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison against a beat-up secondary. I mean, these guys could feast, Brady or RJ. I mean, these guys these guys could be absolute dogs out there against a beat-up Lions secondary. And what I will say, though, like, people have not fully bought into Sam Darnold completely, maybe until this past week. But, I mean, this guy might be the best quarterback in the NFC. I'm speaking gibberish right now. What is your take on Darnold as potentially the best quarterback in the NFC?
I think you hit it right on the head, especially after last week. Dominating performance again. I feel like he's kind of answered all the questions, especially he's on a 1-year deal too, I believe. Like,
yep.
I mean, certainly a guy that I would be – I mean, if that was my quarterback, it's somebody that I would certainly want back on my roster. But, I mean, as far as going up against that beat-up Lions secondary, I feel like, either way, it's going to be a shootout. I mean, no matter – like, the Vikings are going to score, and I have a lot of faith that the Lions are going to score too. So I'm curious to see
You're loving the over right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm curious to see the line, and probably going to be an over kind of game. But it's going to – I see a shootout coming for sure. I do see a shootout coming. I think both sides are just going to be electric.
I got an interesting question for you here. If you were to pick a defense you're more confident in heading into this week, I know the Vikings are a little healthier than the Lions right now. Are you taking the Vikings defense over the Lions rest of the season?
Rest of this, are we talking playoffs too? Going into the
We're talking playoffs too.
Yeah,
we're talking playoffs here.
Yeah, I probably would, just because of history that they've got. I mean, still being able to kind of play not as high of a level, but still being like competent enough to where they keep them. They're not losing the game. They're keeping themselves in the game. They understand that they have a high flying offense. Anything you can do to really not lose the game, force turnovers. They did that a little bit. I believe like Purdy threw another pick today, I'm pretty sure too. And It's just, I still think that they have playmakers on that side. Obviously going to rely a little heavier on that offense, especially going into this matchup, but I would still take them for sure.
I mean, it's just crazy though how dominant this Lions offense is. I mean, Ben Johnson on a weekly basis just toys with teams. Like, it's just offensive what he's doing to other teams right now. And like, they just can't stop it. You know what's going to happen. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. You have Amon-Ra on the slot. You have Jameson Williams down the field. And then you're finding guys like Tim Patrick, Allen Robinson. Even had
yeah.
Like, they're finding ways to get guys that were just scraps on other teams involved in this offense with behind an elite offensive line. And then Jared Goff is a great field general in that offense. Like, it's really tough to stop. And like in the NFC side of things, a team that matches up potentially great with them is the Eagles, because they could slow them down a little bit with that defense. And if their offense in Philadelphia gets going a little bit, I think that could be the dagger. Like that. Right. The thing with Detroit heading into the postseason for me that I'm just most concerned about, what happens if the offense stalls out 3 drives? Can they go win an ugly 17-14 game? We saw earlier on this year, like, I know they weren't peaking at that time, but the Bucs were able to clip them because the Bucs defense locked in, had a great run defense against the Lions, and the offense did enough for the Bucs to go win that game. So I'm interested to see if the Eagles are that team to potentially match. I know the Bucs could be another team that faces them in the playoffs who clipped them earlier, but I'm taking the Lions in that matchup. Are there any teams, RJ, in the NFC that concern you if you're a Lions fan?
It's hard not to look at the team you're playing next week. And not just, I mean, think about it too. Like, this is going to be the second time we're playing them, another opportunity potentially to play them for a third time in the playoffs, which you don't see a ton of. I mean, you still see it sometimes, but, not as often as I feel like maybe you used to. Those division matchups, dude, those go crazy. Like, as much as you want to predict it, it kind of just comes down to who can make the play. Like, you understand schemes, you understand what they're trying to run. You've played them twice already, or you played them once already. If you play them again and then play them in the playoffs for the third time, I feel like it's going to be more of a toss-up, but it's a dangerous team. It's a dangerous team, and I understand the Bucs got them earlier, but I feel like Detroit's kind of gotten hot when they were supposed to. Like, going into this week, playing a meaningless game in San Francisco, still turning on the Jets and putting up 40 points. And then going into next week. But, yeah, I would say Minnesota is probably going to be there. I mean, it'll be the game of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. We got Shoop in the chat. Sarge fit check.
My Brady hoodie on. Come on now.
I do want to talk about the 49ers a little bit in this show. Obviously, this year's been completely disappointing with the San Francisco 49ers. And, we all had lofty expectations for a team that has 8 All-Pros on the roster. It's been a lot of injuries, I think, have been a part of it for sure. But I think the team is not as good, even when they are a little healthier, as they were in years past. And a lot of people mentioned the window closing. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. I will let you talk about that here in a sec. Mm-hmm. But they're in an interesting dilemma now. Brock Purdy is going to get paid, and whether it's by the 49ers or not, he is going to get paid. And if the 49ers do plan on paying him, I don't see how they retain all these all-pro players on these massive contracts by paying Brock Purdy. Their window is supposed to be right now. They might have 1-2 more years with all these big-name players. After that point, Brock Purdy's contract's going to hit, and they're going to have to make some really hard decisions on what players are going to be on this roster long term. And, what I'm interested to see, is it worth paying Brock Purdy $60 million or going out there and trying to find another quarterback? Kyle Shanahan seems to be able to grow a quarterback on a tree. I mean, Stu is in here mentioning Brock Purdy is only worth his rookie contract. I mean, that's what they do well in San Francisco. They're able to find these quarterbacks that nobody wants and just perform with them. RJ, what are you thinking with this window right now in the 49ers?
It's very interesting. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. If they're going to pay, are they going to pay Brock Purdy that money? And if they do, who are they going to be able to retain? And if they don't, who are they going to go out and get? I think it's hard to say that window's closed, because when you do look at that roster and you look at who that head coach is that has taken you to NFC championships, who has taken you to the 1 seed, who has taken you to Super Bowls, although he may not have the rings to show for it, that's – if the Bears went out and got that guy, I would love it. That's somebody that's a proven winner, can win in the regular season and get you to January football. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. It's just the year that they had. I mean, what are they? They're 6-10 now?
Yeah, they're 6-10 right now, which is crazy.
Absolutely crazy to think about. Not something I saw coming into the season, especially like you said, with some of those names that they had. But I do think it's hard. I do think it's hard to say that window's closed. I think they might have another year or two. I mean, Kittle's getting up there in age a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see, can they stay healthy?
Deebo Samuel's probably gone next year.
So I think it's going to be interesting either way. But I do think they pay Brock Purdy.
I do think they wind up doing it. The weirdest thing about the 49ers and Brock Purdy is I always see these beat reporters reporting that Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy are always beefing. They always have an argument. I don't buy into it a ton. I mean, that's just kind of a relationship between offense coordinator / head coach and their quarterback. I mean, if there isn't a little bit of competitive rivalry between those two where they're beefing back and forward, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing at all. We got Mickey in the chat. Oh, hey, what up, Richard? You got Mickey in here. But I will say it's going to be interesting to see. The 49ers have a long offseason. They're going to get a high draft pick, which is great. They need a slot of high draft picks, kind of retool that roster. And obviously, John Lynch is a great GM who drafts great talent all the time, so I'm not necessarily worried about them drafting. But it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting dilemma. I do want to talk a little bit about the AFC playoff picture, obviously. We got the Bengals, we got the Broncos, and we got the Miami Dolphins. RJ, what are your thoughts?
How are the Dolphins still around? I think that's crazy. I
even tried to lose. They just said, we don't even need to play you.
That one's crazy to me. I would love to see Cincy get to the playoffs. I think that would be very interesting. And I think if there's one guy that 15 doesn't want to see, it's the quarterback.
I don't think so.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, it's been 3 years now since Joe Burrow beat Mahomes.
He's still the only one to beat him in the playoffs outside of number 12. Anyway, I do think it's going to be very interesting. Cincy playing on Saturday in Pittsburgh, and then they kind of got to watch to see if Denver can Kansas City would have to beat Denver, see what happens there, especially not playing any of the starters in that week. I think
Carson Wentz legacy game.
It's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think it would be I would be shocked if Cincy got in somehow, some way. I mean, starting, the season they had Joe Burrow playing as good as he has, they were 4-8 and then they've won 4 straight to get to 500 and see what happens in last week of the season. So I don't know. It's going to be up for grabs. It's pretty exciting going into the last week of the season though.
So you think the Dolphins got 0 chance? I mean, I think they play the Jets this week is who they play.
Yeah, okay, sure. They get to the playoffs and then what? They got to go travel somewhere cold?
They have no chance against Buffalo in Buffalo. But I think I'm going to double check.
I'm not playing the Jets. I don't know what else seeding wise or what else,
they play the Jets. And right now they're only favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a toilet bowl for sure. Is it in Miami or New York?
New York.
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a little cold this weekend too.
A little cold for Tua.
Is he playing? Is he going to play too?
I feel like he probably will play. I feel like they held him out because it was very
unlikely.
They need him.
Yeah.
Like the chances that the Colts, I mean, we'll talk about the Colts real quick, worst loss I think I've ever watched. I mean, that defense, dude, that was
the
that's like a high school football team trying to play an NFL team. That's what it looked like when we watched the Colts on Sunday. And I bet on them. I was an idiot and bet on these guys. Like, I just threw them in there because I'm like, all right, they're playing the Giants. The Giants don't want to win games. I just threw them in there. Every other line in the bet hit. That one screwed me over. It was horrible.
Yep.
And then Pat McAfee even hates the team.
Yeah,
like,
I saw that.
When you know it's bad.
Yeah, that was bad. Yeah.
Weren't they like some of these real quick? Will Lamar take down Mahomes in the playoffs? I actually mentioned this yesterday, Shoop. I do think the Ravens are the second biggest threat to the Chiefs on the AFC side of things. I think the Bills are still the top threat. They match up a little bit better against the Chiefs than the Ravens do. Mickey in the chat, tell the Chiefs to try against the Broncos. Dude, Carson Wentz, Carson Steele. The Carsons could be in for a legacy game. But to be completely honest, it's an 8.5 spread right now. The chances of it happening are so slim.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, the Colts were 7.5, and they wound up blowing that game. So I don't even know what we're going to get. What I'll say on the AFC side of things, Cincinnati, great offense, one of the top offenses in the league. I think that defense has no chance against a playoff offense. I love their offense. I think they can give Buffalo a good game, but I think the Bills would score every drive against this Bengals defense. The Bengals defense is nowhere near a top 20, 25 unit in the NFL. I mean, it would just be not worth it. And then on the Bengals, like, even if they do make the playoffs, right, you're just increasing the pick you have. They were at 4-8, RJ, at one point. And I'm like, all right, the Bengals could get like a top 12 pick and completely just go stock up on positions they need. That's going to be a late first now almost at this point to where they're trending right now. They'll be 9-8. I think they are going to beat Pittsburgh in this one. It's just such an interesting situation because now you have the Jamar Chase contract, you have the T. Higgins contract, and there's rumors that they want to pay both guys. RJ, do this math for me. If you pay two wide receivers $65 million, how much money does that leave for everybody else?
Not a lot.
Not a lot of money, and they got a lot of holes in that defense right now. It's concerning. I mean, it just feels like the wrong move to go out and pay two high-end wide receiver contracts. What is your opinion on that?
Is T. Higgins free agent after this year?
Yes.
And Jamar?
Yep.
I mean, you got to sign Jamar. Jamar's got to be number one.
Jamar for sure is getting locked up.
But, like, I mean, you know, is there somebody good in the wide receiver class that you trust? I mean, T. Higgins is a dog. Is there anybody that else is going to be a free agent that maybe you can grab for cheaper? I mean, especially if you know that you got to upgrade that defense for like how.
And we've seen a lot of teams pivot from these star wide receivers.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting.
It's also like a develop too. Like you can find people or like players to develop, you know, could be a little, I mean, instead of just giving out bags, but it's just so funny to see like how good Joe Burrow's played this year. Literally MVP.
Dude, you know what he reminds me of? Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yes.
Literally 2011 Drew Brees on the Saints throwing for 5,000 yards and just not getting any MVP nods because his defense was 7-9.
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do because I mean, what do you think? You think they pay both? And if they do, like what do they do with the rest of that defense?
Hypothetical Colts Bengals matchup over under 62.5. That would be a disgusting offense or defensive performance. Yeah. But I will say, are they going to pay both? No, they're just like, I just think it's stupid.
Bag, dude.
Dude, Jamar Chase might get $40 million a year.
Yeah.
Like if they pay a wide receiver 40 and T is going to probably get close to $30 million a year. Like, dude, that's just crazy money to the wide receiver.
Right there. Not including anybody else.
And Joe, you have Joe Burrow's deal.
Right.
And then you have all that on top of that, and you have positions in the defense. They've let people actually walk on the defense as of late. Trey Hendrickson, one of their best defenders, is on a cheap contract right now and wanted an extension in the offseason too. Like, they have problems over there. It's definitely concerning. We'll close on this, though, for the show. RJ, we have to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers just put up one of the worst QBR games since Davis Mills did. I think he had a 1.2 total QBR on the day. Rodgers actually pulled himself from the game. Yeah. I mean, is this the end?
It's hard to say that about a guy like A-Rod for the years that he's had and the years I've had to watch him annihilate my team and just how like methodical he is, how good he is with his, just being able to make reads, the throws that he makes. But you also got to remember, this guy's 40 years old coming off a torn Achilles, less than, a year and change ago. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. I don't know if he'll be with the Jets next year. It doesn't seem like it, especially with that culture and the things that has been said about
Garrett
him.
Wilson apparently wants out if he's the quarterback.
Yeah, and he was like, he was like, I'm not going to try and recruit Saquon. I don't know who that was.
No, that was Sauce. Sauce said he ain't recruiting T. Higgins.
I was like, oh my God. So I think that's just kind of broken, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing Rodgers play in one more spot to see if he's still got anything with him, but it's going to be interesting because I don't.
So where would you think a potential destination could be?
I don't
Top of the head. Give me 3 teams.
I don't even know. I honestly have no clue who I would put him on, but I just feel like he's like, just with the history that he's got, like it's not even. I mean, it's somebody that you can at least think about, right? Like somebody you maybe want to talk to. What if he went to the other side? I know that team would not be that good, honestly. I was gonna say if he went to
literally trying to think right now. I don't know any team that would want him. The Titans,
not the other side of New York,
dude. Oh, the Giants. I don't know.
Rodgers would want to go there. Yeah,
I don't think Rodgers would want to go there. He want to be. I think the Titans could fit. I think. Who knows what the Colts are doing with Anthony Richardson?
Raiders. Colts.
Raiders could get frisky because they won again. That actually could be very interesting. Devontae Adams could go back. That would be crazy if it's the Raiders. Mickey in the chat, the Raiders. That would get really interesting. What I'll say about the Aaron Rodgers situation before we close the show here, Aaron Rodgers is a bad quarterback. He's just a bad quarterback right now. I know the Achilles injury, but him and Kirk have looked completely different quarterbacks since the Achilles injury. And I don't necessarily think 2 immobile quarterbacks for their – Rodgers obviously had a little bit better mobility, but he has been immobile now for a few years prior to the injury. Him and Kirk were immobile at this point when they suffered the injuries. They're only more immobile now. They're basically statues in the pocket. What I will say, Kirk is in a worse position than Rodgers because Rodgers at least has all the accolades, has like the name value, has been an elite quarterback in this league. I think another team could take a shot on him, but it's ultimately up to Aaron Rodgers. And to be honest, I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants to play football next year. I mean, how do you pull yourself from a game and want to play football? Like he's 1 touchdown away from 500 touchdowns right now. Jacob,
really? He was 1 away.
Yeah, he's 1 away from 500 touchdowns. RJ.
Oh my God.
Ooh, Mickey, send him.
Kyle Shanahan.
He would love that too. But
Kyle Shanahan going back home too.
Just play over him. I could never see. Listen, I could never see Aaron Rodgers taking a backup spot. That is one thing I will 100% think.
No. His
ego would never do that.
Yeah, he hasn't been a backup since he backed up Favre. Like, there's no shot he would ever do that.
Nah, 100%. But hey, if you guys are watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below where you guys think Aaron Rodgers could end up, who you think's coming out of the AFC. If you guys are in the live stream right now, really appreciate you guys tuning in. For those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Appreciate it.